Chapter 41. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 41. Chapter 41. Power Force from 4 Trilling Rings. Kevin left the dorm room as soon as he heard that Lexa had left for the canteen. He was amazed seeing how early Lexa had woken. She had woken up before the alarm sounded, and that left him wondering why she was in the haste of going to the canteen. Or perhaps she's angry at Kevin for leaving her all alone when they promised to read together. Why won't she be angry at you? You left her standing all alone without saying anything. Even if it is. Can you wait for me in the garden? Don't go anywhere, I'll be back soon. What type of person are you? Do you think a girl will fall for someone as cruel as you? Ah, I know. I should have told her where I was going yesterday. I should find her and ask for forgiveness. It's obvious she's mad at me about yesterday. Go ahead, find and ask for her forgiveness. You hear me? One shout, I heard you. I'm going to find her now, will you please stop shouting in my head? Kevin replied, his hands on his head as he finally exited the dorm building and started walking towards the direction of the canteen. Many other students were making their way to the canteen. It was obvious that a long queue would have been formed as everyone was in the haste of reaching the canteen on time. And apart from that, the students were excited on their first day in class. Rumors had it that they would be learning the energy weapon skill on their first week, and by next week, they would be promoting those who successfully managed to learn the skill so well to the rank of a mage soldier. Each student will be promoted to the rank of a mage soldier every week as long as they succeeded in learning how to control the energy in their bodies by forming it into different types of weapons. Kevin was just a few meters close to the canteen. Walking silently behind him was Dan. He has been watching him since he left the dorm room. He wanted to know what he did with the ring he took from Bryce. Perhaps he wanted to sell it or something. His thought was that perhaps the ring was in his pocket. It makes sense that he didn't want to put it on because many eyes are on things like that. Everyone knew that the other bullies also have those rings on their fingers, so everyone had already labeled the ring as the bullies' matching rings because they all look similar. They can't tell each ring apart. All 20.4 bullies of their school had the rings on their fingers, including Bryce made it 20.5. Kevin, I can feel the powerful force of one of the trilling rings close by. The A1 said. Really? Where? I guess it'll be easy finding the rings quickly than I thought. Go a little bit forward, then look to your right, the power of the trilling ring is coming from there. It doesn't seem to be just one, I can feel the powerful force coming from 4 trilling rings. Quick. Alright, I understand you. I'll go get the rings. God knows whose hands it will be this time around. But how could that person have 4 rings in his hands, if it's not a curse? Kevin said as he approached a group of students that were gathered at a point, busy looking at something. It must be in the hands of one of these students. I wonder who would have it among them. Perhaps I should check their fingers first, but won't it raise suspicion? Kevin thought as he stood behind the gathered students. No, Kevin, you're checking the wrong place. Move forward a little bit, that's where the power force is coming from. Kevin heaved a sigh of relief within himself as he felt glad that he didn't get to be checking each of the students' hands one by one. He would be called a pervert if he was caught. And talking about these students, what exactly are they looking at? Kevin stood on his toes to see what was going on, and then he saw it. At a corner, a female student was trapped by 4 bullies. The bullies had smiles on their faces, but the female student looks frightened and angry at the same time. Wait, are my eyes kidding me? Is that not Lexa? Kevin pushed through the students as he stood in front of them all. He could see it clearly, Lexa was cornered by 4 elves. They were saying things but no one could hear them. The gathered students were standing at a far distance away from the bullies. Kevin was still confirming if who he saw was Lexa, but the sudden scream for help from her confirmed it for him, and he ran out for her rescue. But before he could act rashly, he had received notifications from the system and from the A1 who called himself Kevin's master. Kevin's eyes widened in amazement as he read the notifications that the system gave him. He is going to complete this quest at all costs. If it is to defeat these bullies, Kevin would strive his best to do that. If he manages to defeat them, he won't just receive the 200 EXP but he would be able to level up once or twice. He read further and saw that the bonus is not limited to the 200 EXP. This is awesome. Bring it on, I'll destroy these brats. Even though I may not know how to use my newly gotten skills, I can still use the few tricks I learned from my father's disciples and grab the rings from their fingers. Luckily, your fighting skill is higher than theirs, it will be easy defeating them all. Chapter 42. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 42, Bonus Chapter, Chapter 42. Little creatures. Although I used to be a weak guy when it comes to shooting arrows and dodging attacks. But I'm sure with the strength I have presently, I would be able to punch 2 to 3 of those bullies. Kevin calculated. Yes, my pupil, your combat capability is 20, you should be able to defeat those guys easily. The system said. If mine is 20, then what's those guys' combat capabilities? After checking, I realized that their capabilities are 7, but with the ring that they have, an additional strength was given to them, so their capabilities are in a total of 11 for all of them. You have 20, so it will be an easy task defeating them. The A1 said. Oh yeah, 'cause I'm gonna kick those guys' arse right now. Kevin said as he walked towards the 4 bullies. Dan, who had been watching him for a while, wondered where Kevin was going. He saw the gathered students looking towards a direction, and as he peeped to take a look, his eyes widened with shock as he saw Lexa in the midst of 4 bullies. He ran forward to rescue her, but after seeing Kevin approach the bullies, he cautioned himself for a while, thinking whether to help out or not. Can you see that guy approaching them? Is he trying to save her? I'm damn sure he's going to get killed. Don't you know how strong those elves are? The rings in their hands are so powerful that a dragon can emerge from the ground and swallow their opponent. Is it true? Yes, I saw it with my own eyes. I went to the same high school as those elves. They joined hands together and a dragon emerged in their midst and devoured the male fairy who challenged them to a fight. What? Did the teachers knew? Of course they knew, but what could they do? After all, those elves are from wealthy families. The incident was covered up, and unluckily for the elf, he was an orphan with no siblings or family members. No one was allowed to talk about the incident or they'll be punished. So after a few months, everyone forgot about it. As Dan heard of this story, he decided not to interfere. He wanted to get rid of Kevin anyway. That's when the angel on his right shoulders appeared to give him a warning on his decision. Dan, are you sure you won't regret the step you're about to take right now? Kevin might die if you don't help out. But I thought you guys were friends. At that time, the little devil on his left shoulder had appeared right away. What do you mean friends? When did you and Kevin become friends? He only helped out by giving you the gems because he also needed your help. There's no friendship between you two, so you can do as you wish to him. Don't you dare attempt to save him, he's a traitor. He wanted to save Lexa, right? Then let him go, there's no way he could survive it anyway. Then you'll have Lexa all to yourself. No. Dan, listen to me. The little angel on Dan's right shoulder objected. If Kevin dies, will you be able to own Lexa? What if the bullies takes her as their mate? What will you do then? Kill the bullies? Come on pal, we don't need to argue over things like this. The little devil said to the little angel. What do you mean? Let's leave the decision into Dan's hands, let him choose what he wants. I'm sure he will make the right choice. Let's go back to heaven and have a coffee together. Really? The little angel said. That'll be nice. Let's have some coffee. It's been a long time since we last chatted as friends, we've been fighting each other for decades for no reason. So, Dan. I'll be leaving you to take the rightful decision that comes from the bottom of your heart. Goodbye. Both the little devil and the little angel disappeared from Dan's shoulder, but it didn't take a second that the little devil had appeared again by Dan's left shoulder. "Hey buddy. Don't listen to that fool. Heed what I tell you. We are the same, we both have that darkness in our hearts that we can't conquer. Let that Kevin meet his demise, we need to get rid of him so we could have Lexa for ourselves. You got me now buddy." Dan shook his head and the little devil disappeared. An evil grin formed on his face as he watched Kevin walk towards his death. "Thanks for making the job of killing you more easier for me, no matter what you do, Lexa is mine anyways," Kevin said within himself. Kevin had finally gotten close to the 4 bullies, he could see the 4 trilling rings crying to him to be taken. They were golden and shiny than the first one he took from Bryce. "What are you doing harassing a female fairy?" Kevin said. The elves turned their gazes at him and looked at him from the head to the toe. "And who the hell are you? Are you perhaps her boyfriend? You look so skinny to be dating someone like her," one of the elves said while Lexa hid her face away from Kevin in embarrassment. "Gosh, I must do something. I must escape with Kevin from these guys. Kevin might be confident in defeating these guys like he did to Bryce, but there's something he don't know. I can't let them beat him up. He's my boyfriend. Be for goodness sake," Lexa said within herself as she tried using her ice magic, but unfortunately it wasn't working. "Why is this happening? Why aren't my magic working?" Right at the moment, one of the men had her hands tied to the back and she was unable to use her magic to free herself. She saw the rings in their hands and had no doubt that the rings might be the reason why she wasn't able to use her magic. This is something that has never happened to her in her whole life. "So what do you want buddy? You want to save your girlfriend? Then you'll have to go through me if you want to do so. Come on, come and fight me," the one that was assumed to be their leader said. "Go through you, I will," Kevin momentarily replied with a smirk. Chapter 43. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 43. Chapter 43. Vital point. From the windows of one of the teachers' block was a female teacher standing as she watched the morning sun rise from the east side of the school. "I swear I'm going to punish that stupid girl for what she did to me," Lena swore as she placed her hands on her chest to warm her already frozen heart and blood veins that had become stiff all night long. She grinned her teeth angrily as she recalled what her sister did to her, back at the library yesterday. "You're lucky I'm still learning my second magic. I would have peeled off your ugly face with fire. Arg." She groaned angrily as she slammed her fist at the glass window of the building. A young male fairy had started running towards her. He had immediately barged into the room, disobeying Lena's orders of waiting at the door till she's ready to see anyone. The fairy was an average-sized short guy with a faint-colored blue eyes. His eyes were full of worries as he heard the smashing of glass coming from Lena's staff room, so he had immediately rushed into the room. "I'm sorry mistress, but I have to see that you're doing okay." He immediately rushed into Lena's staff room. The window that Lena punched with her fists was now broken and the glasses had managed to draw a wound from her hand. "Mistress, you are hurt." The male fairy panicked greatly as he saw his precious mistress, who is boss to him at home and at work, wound her fists. The male fairy ran forward and backward, not knowing what to do next. Lena didn't remove her hands from the crushed window. Her gaze fell on the gathered students that were watching as a fight was about to occur between a group of students. "Elijah, do you know why I was in the library all frozen this morning?" "No mistress, you didn't tell anyone." "Not even me, your personal assistant." "Please reveal who did this to you, we will arrest the person and punish him at once." "Nah, the person who did this to me is a she and I'm sure you guys won't be able to do anything to her even if you know her name," Lena said, her hands unmoving from the shattered glass window. Mistress. Please trust us, we will punish that person," Elijah promised. "What a soft-hearted guy you are, Kevin. Putting yourself at risk because of my sister. My stupid sister. Lena said within her mind. There's someone I want you to bring up here. Lena replied, gesturing for Elijah to look downward the window. He did so and saw a group of students gathered around in front of a building. You see the girl in the middle of the four men, I want you to bring her here. Mistress, is she the one that froze you with ice all night? Don't worry mistress, I'll go get her. She'll be in your office soon. Elijah said as he called for a few academy staff members along with him. Lena muttered a fake smile as she watched Elijah leave the room. Let's see if you'll succeed on bringing my stupid sister here. Is she your girlfriend? You'll have to go through me if you want to save her. Sure, no problem. Kevin immediately agreed as he clenched his fist tightly and faced the leader of the group called Matt, but his nickname was Lover Guy. Let's see if my theory is right. Kevin made sure not to make eye contact with his opponent and thought of seeing what magic his opponent have but not was shown to him. He waited for a few seconds but nothing happened. He then proceeded with the next theory by looking into his opponent's eyes. As Kevin's eyes locked on Matt's, the notification showing the details of his opponent appeared to him all of a sudden. Yes. Theory number 2 worked. I can only see how strong they are after looking into their eyes. Kevin said as he took his eyes off Matt and he could still see the details of him hovering above his eyes. So it's not a compulsory thing for him to stare at his opponent's eyes for too long because he wanted to know how strong he was. Even if he closes the system tab and bring it back up, he could still see it. So it's not something so impressive. He must be so weak if not for the trilling ring he had with him. This fight is going to be fun. Kevin was ready and so was Matt. Let's see what you got, kid. I'll be going easy on you. Matt said as he walked closer to Kevin. Kid. We'll see who's kid between you and I. Kevin frowned angrily. Matt attacked first by throwing a fist at Kevin. Luckily it was slow, so Kevin was able to dodge it so easily. I need to be careful not to get him. I may be strong to launch powerful attacks but my body is still weak to take any damage. Kevin thought carefully as he sent a punch of his own. Matt had underestimated Kevin's punch to be a weak one, so he allowed his punch to go through his stomach. But his view immediately changed after realizing how strong Kevin's attack was. He felt his lungs scream out in pain as his fist touched his stomach. His eyes widened with shock and he tried to hold in the groan that was fighting to come out of his mouth. Boss, are you okay? One of his men asked and he nodded to not cause any suspicion. Shit, this guy is stronger than I think. He hits hard. I need to end this fight quickly by defeating him with everything I have. My men mustn't know that he's stronger than me. The students will see me as weak if he manages to defeat me. No. I won't allow him. He said as he slowly lifted himself up and ignored the pain in his stomach. He thought he could hold the pain in and continue fighting but he failed to realize that Kevin hadn't stopped attacking, he also planned to end the fight as quick as possible. He proceeded with his attack by slamming his combined 5 fingers on Matt's neck, hitting him at the crucial point of his body. It was all thanks to the martial arts skill he learned from his father's disciples. He was taught places to attack when fighting in an hand-to-hand battle with an opponent. Thank goodness I mastered the teachings back then, I wouldn't be able to hit him on the vital point if it hadn't been for the disciples. Kevin smiled happily at his new achievement. Matt howled in pain as Kevin damaged the vein of his neck. He had immediately fell on the ground after being hit in an unexpected part of his body. The gathered students were surprised that the feared bully of their school was easily defeated by a tiny student. Dan was nonetheless surprised at this fact. Is Kevin really that strong? Won't Lexa finally fall for him in the end? Shit. Why the hell did I listen to that little devil? Dan said angrily. Master, are you all right? Matt couldn't even nod his head. His neck was going through a very serious pain and it was damn so difficult to nod his head. He knew his men had realized how strong Kevin was, but he knew Kevin will defeat them just as he defeated him. He and his men were all weak and they all knew that. They spend lots of money on the trilling ring just to get stronger, but they realized that the ring only add a little strength to their bodies, and the only power they have is when the four of them hold hands and summon a dragon through the trilling ring. Matt knew that the next thing his men would do is fight Kevin, but if they all fight Kevin and got defeated, they won't be able to summon the dragon due to how weak they would have been. So he has to stop his men from engaging in a battle with Kevin. At least, not as unprepared as they are. Matt used his healing magic to heal his neck so he could gather a few stamina to talk. "How dare you beat up our master?" One of Matt's men challenged Kevin. "Did I beat him up? He got what he deserved. Now get away from the girl or I'll beat you up like I did to your master." Kevin used the chance to drive fear into the hearts of the elves. What do you mean? Do you want a beating? Hey, our master only went easy on you because you're skinny. I'll rip your skin off if you make me angry. Is that so? How about I make you angry and see if you could really rip off my skin? I wonder if you would be able to do so since your master even wasn't able to hurt a single hair of my head. Are you willing to give it a try? Chapter 44. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 44. Chapter 44. Stubborn mistress, stop. Stop. Everyone should stop fighting. Elijah said as he got into the midst of the students. The female his mistress ordered him to bring was surprisingly someone he knew. He rubbed his eyes to see if he wasn't seeing illusions. Don't tell me. Lexa was the one who froze her sister. Arg. What did I got myself into? I've promised Mistress Lena. She must have known I couldn't do it. Just as Lena was her mistress at home, so was Lexa. Elijah was a loyal servant to the two lady fairies and had been serving their family for almost 20 years. Seeing that his mistress was in danger, he had to interfere and rescue her. Get your hands off her right now, Elijah shouted, and the guards who had seen that their mistress was in danger immediately rushed to save her. Two of the guards grabbed the elves that endangered Lexa and made them kneel on the ground. What? Aren't you children of the elven elders? How dare you place your hands on the daughter of the fairy leader? The Monroe family's second daughter. Do you have a death wish? The gathered students could hear their conversations and were shocked upon realizing that Lexa was the daughter of the fairy leader. Did you know? No, I'm just hearing. I didn't know she was someone famous. Me neither. Then it makes sense why the bullies were fighting over her. Just then, someone spotted the other groups of bullies watching the commotion from a corner. Guys! Guys, look over there. They are here. Everyone shifted their gaze toward the direction of the bullies and a sudden fear struck their hearts. I wonder if they're going to interfere. A student said. If they do, the male elf might be killed, another replied. You mean the one that beat up Matt? Mistress, are you all right? Elijah said as he approached Lexa, seeing the wound on her wrist. I'm okay. Thanks for exposing my identity. Lexa frowned before walking with her shoulders up toward Kevin. She is no longer feeling ashamed of yesterday's fact. She has decided to reveal the truth if that's what will make her feel at ease. Hiding and shying away from Kevin won't solve the matter, so she decided to approach him and talk to him. Are you alright, Kev? I'm sorry you had to fight because of me. Kev. Did she just call you Kev? Wonderful, she's head over heels for you. The system teased. Sure, I'm okay. Then. Can I have a moment with you? Matt's men had heard the request and had gotten angry. Especially the one who was about to fight Kevin. One of Lexa's guards had his hands tied to the back so he won't do anything rashly, but he had forcefully freed himself from his grip and walked towards Kevin. You still owe me a fight, where do you think you're going? Matt was already healed and had immediately stood up. It's okay, Ratton, let's suspend this fight for later. I wasn't intending to fight him anyway because I was sick. But he took the fight seriously and I was defeated. Let's pick a date and settle all this amicably. Matt was trying his best to not seem weak in front of the students, although he bare a great grudge against Kevin for making him seem like a weak fool. He was going to have revenge on him at all costs. But he needs to come up with a lie that would retain the respect he had in the school. Even if he had to pretend to be sick, he would do so. It was something he was good at. After all, pretending was his second nature. Did you all hear that? Ratton shouted so the students could hear them. He already knew that Matt wasn't sick but was rather trying not to seem like a weak person in front of the students by coming up with such a lie. Lover guy is sick, that's why he's like this. If you dare carry any stupid rumor around, I've marked your faces, I'll kill you all by summoning the dragon. Now listen to me, Kevin, you said you want to fight. And fight shall you see. Matt moved closer to Kevin and whispered to him. It was silent enough for Kevin, Lexa, and his men to hear. Meet us at the tennis court by 7 p.m. It's just us, no other people must come with you, including Lexa. Let's have a friendly duel together. Matt said with a smirk as he walked away with his men. Those who were held by the guards had freed themselves. They let them go cause they couldn't do anything to them anyway, or a fight might start among the 5 families. The bullies who had been watching the commotion between Kevin and the 4 elves suddenly disappeared out of sight as they saw Matt and his elves coming. Kevin liked the idea the bullies suggested for him. Fighting them one-on-one in an empty hall was an awesome idea. He would be able to defeat them easily without worrying about what people would say or think of him. He would be able to receive the Trilling rings and complete a part of his ring quests. If he succeeds in taking the 4 rings from the elves, the total number of rings will be 5 in total, but he still has a long way to go. As soon as the elves left, Lexa grabbed Kevin's hands as she in hopes of discussing with him. Elijah had seen her leaving and had run to stop her. Mistress, please wait. Your sister wants to see you in her office. Elijah said, walking behind Lexa, but she ignored him and instead walked faster than before. Kevin couldn't do anything, Lexa was holding his hands tightly and he couldn't stop her from running. Elijah kept on following them till the students decided to run faster. This time Kevin was the one holding Lexa's hands and they laughed as they ran towards the convenience store. Elijah stopped as he tried to catch his breath. He couldn't run anymore and just give up on chasing his stubborn mistress. He already knew this was going to be the result anyway. Lexa has always been the stubborn child of the Monroe family, she's so difficult to control and she does things as she likes. But she was the favorite child of her father, although he doesn't show it to anyone. Yet in his words, it shows a lot that he cares for her. Boss, are you sick? Ratton asked as the 4 elves sat down to eat in the canteen. Chapter 45. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 45, Bonus Chapter, Chapter 45. The intruder Matt darted annoyingly at Ratton. His brows creased so deeply that Ratton almost freaked out in fear. He kept his mouth shut and then sat silently in his chair. You guys should prepare for tonight. I need you to do something for me. Matt said with a wry smile. On another table was another group of elves seated, they are the remaining 20 bullies of the school. They had been watching the 4 bullies since they arrived at the canteen. Is Matt trying to date Lena's sister? I thought he was head over heels for Lena, did he give up on her? So easily. What about the bet he placed on winning her over? He knew I'm interested in Lena but didn't know I wanted both daughters for myself unless someone told him. Someone must have told him about it. The one that was claimed to be the boss over all of them said. He was quite fat and muscular and he looked strong compared to the 6 dragons and lover guys men as they were nicknamed. No one would dare go against you, Graham, one of his men replied. Then why did he approach Lexa, who no one knew about her identity in this school? Do you remember that they almost fought in the canteen yesterday? I think he did a background search on her and decided to take the chance of asking her out. His parents are not faring well in their business lately, they need the help of Lena's parents to get back up, but since Lena wasn't showing him face, I guess he decided to hit on the sister. That traitor, I will make sure he doesn't succeed with his plan, Graham said as he crushed the cup that was in his hands. I don't think we should be worried about Matt for now. One of the 6 groups of elves said. What do you mean? Graham asked, tilting his head in his direction. Don't you see that Matt is yet to ask the girl out? He's not halfway doing so. You shouldn't be angry at the intruder amidst us rather than taking Matt as your enemy. Matt is not my friend and you know that. What exactly are you getting at? The elf that Matt was fighting. The one we saw challenging him. He's the one you should get rid of, not Matt. At least not yet. Graham was silent for a few seconds as he thought deeply about what the elf just said. He then smiled and presented a handshake to the elf nicknamed the 6th Dragon. That's why I love to have you guys by my side, Graham said as he shook hands with the elf. Do a background check on that guy and report back to me. I need to know who his family is. We need to know who he is before planning an attack. Graham ordered his men. Lexa was panting heavily as she sat on one of the chairs of the convenience store. Kevin sat beside her as they had lots of fruits placed in front of her. Are you okay? Kevin asked. Yeah. I've still not caught my breath, she answered. But how could you be so fast? I've never run like this before. Is this your first time running so fast? He giggled as he picked an apple fruit to eat. Hey, Lexa grabbed his hands before he could place the fruit in his mouth. Can't you even care for a dying girl beside you? You're not even romantic. Kevin blinked upon hearing the word romantic, it sounds foreign to him. What do you mean? Romantic, he stuttered as he tried to repeat what Lexa just said. Lexa couldn't help but fall into laughter. Shoot. What a dumb guy. It's called romantic, not romantic. I guess Lexa must have known you didn't go to middle school. The system said. Are you kidding me? I studied every English book the disciples gave to me. Not all elves are as literate as I am. I know a lot of English, but this romantic word seems new to me. Oh my. Kevin, you're funny. That's why I told you to read human comic books. You'll get to learn a lot of stuff about humans and their words. Romantic is a word used by humans. It is a way of showing love and care to the opposite gender beside you. That's what being romantic is. She explained. Oh, I didn't know, Kevin replied. But now you know. Give me that. Lexa said as she took the apple that was in Kevin's hands and ate it. So now what? Didn't I tell you it's a foreign language? Shit, I must have lost my senses. I thought I knew everything about magical creatures. I forgot elves have their different languages. How could you know since you're a robot and A1 system? Your creator didn't program that information for you. Kevin replied to the system. Kevin, why are you not asking me? Lexa suddenly said. Asking you about what? Lexa picked a different type of fruit and started chewing on it like a hungry lion. She sighed before replying to Kevin. She was a bit nervous telling him the truth, but he saw that Kevin wasn't talking about yesterday and was a lot chattier than before. So she knew something must be wrong. Is he feigning ignorance to not get angry at me? What if he gets angry at me if I tell him? What should I do? I'm scared. Lexa shut her eyes tightly, but someone tapped her on the shoulders, making her flutter her eyes open in shock. What? She asked as she looked to her side and saw Kevin gleaming with a cheerful smile at her. What is he doing right now? He's smiling at me. Am I dreaming? Lexa pondered as her mouth was left hanging in amazement. How long do I have to keep this up, system? My cheeks are hurting. Kevin said as he swallowed in but was still smiling at Lexa. Patience, you should keep on doing that. She is already falling for your charm. Do you even know what you're doing? Is this a way of asking a lady out? No, I'm not teaching you how to ask her out. This is how you show you are romantic. Your smile would make her forget what she was about to say. So smile and let her get butterflies in her stomach. That's how to be a romantic guy. Okay, now I give up. Kevin said as he stopped smiling. What is it that you want to say, Lexa? Lexa got back to her senses and then decided to speak, but then, a bell suddenly started ringing in the convenience store. The two students looked around as they heard the bell ring. Chapter 46. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 46. Chapter 46. First class. The sudden ring of the bell reminded the two students that classes would soon begin. This was the first class in the academy. It was announced in every buildings of the school for the students to arrive at their classroom in the next 10 minutes. As soon as Kevin and Lexa heard the announcement, they had immediately head for their classroom. Upon getting to the classroom, Kevin decided to pick a seat at the back, and surprisingly, Lexa had sat beside him at the back. Dan and his siblings had also arrived, and they were surprised seeing Lexa sit at the back of the class. They immediately sat on seats closer to where she was because the 3 seats beside Lexa has been occupied by others. So they were sitting at 2 rows away from Lexa's. Oddly enough, Dan wanted to stay far away from the two as he decided to sit at the front row. That way, he won't be bothered by Kevin or Lexa. Are you really comfortable sitting at the back? Kevin asked, knowing fully that most of the females elves are sitting at the front row. She's probably the only female sitting at the back of the class. Yeah, it's comfortable sitting with you. Lexa replied with a smile. Kevin was wondering why she was acting this way. She seemed strange and more friendly to him. There must be a reason to it. Lexa. What you wanted to tell me back at the convenience store, what is it? He asked. Oh, the teacher is here. Lexa pointed, using that medium to ignore Kevin's question. She thought Kevin was angry at her for spying on him, but she noticed through his words that she was wrong and Kevin knew nothing about it. Their homeroom teacher had entered the class. He was the man that gave them a tour around the school on their first day. He stood in front of the students as he planned to give them a welcoming speech before the classes began. At the front of the class was a white board that projects images and videos to the public. The homeroom teacher pointed the remote towards the board as he switched it on. A blue photo display could be seen appearing on the white board, but the students weren't concerned as each were chatting amongst each other. Lexa had moved her head closer to Kevin and started whispering to him. Don't worry about it anymore. It's nothing, she said to Kevin before sitting upright to face the teacher at front. Kevin had a frown on his face. He wondered what that thing was that Lexa was hiding from him. He was sure it was something important with the way she sounded at first. But what could he do? He can't force the word out of her. Good morning, mage students. For those who do not know who I am, probably you came late or something, my name is Chris. I am your homeroom teacher. Feel free to come to my office anytime you wish. And don't worry, I don't bite students. The whole class laughed and the class continued. Chris was able to make all the students like him on their first class. He was easy, cool and handsome and doesn't seem to be able to get annoyed by anything. Classes for this week. Chris announced as he pointed the remote control towards the board, and the blue display switched to a list of classes to be held for the first week. As you can see, for the first week we will be teaching you how to make use of the energy force within you. The students who are able to complete the training will be promoted to the rank of a mage soldier. You'll be given a weapon of your wish, and more trainings will come which will determine if you would be promoted to the next rank or not. We'll be having the next class together by next week, so keep on training hard and reach the top by the end of this week. As soon as Chris ended his speech, the students applauded him as they exited the class for the next one. Since the energy force training involves creating weapons with the inner energy, the students were told to head for the weapon hall, where an elf teacher with long white-colored hairs would be teaching them the basics of the skill. The weapon hall was away from the main school building as it was located at a side in its own separate building. It was a large one-room building that had a royalty feeling to it. To enter the building, students needed to scan their access cards into the scanner, and then the two large doors would slide open. Just like other buildings in the school, Kevin noticed that the outside of the building had a technology feeling to it. But on getting inside the building, they saw that it was a completely different thing. The weapon hall was a large room where the ceiling was about 20 meters high. The room had no decorations apart from the different types of weapons hung up on the wall, which made them realize that they were really inside a weapon hall. They also saw that in the center of the room was a round raised podium. Kevin looked at the wall and saw all sorts of things: axes, short swords, fans, bow and arrows, spiked clubs, whips, katana blade, gauntlet, scythes, long swords and many other weapons. It was so difficult for the students to choose the one they fantasize because all were attention attractive. Sitting at the corner of the hall was an old elf with a long white hair. With the position they met him, the students could assume that he was meditating as he had his eyes closed while a long katana blade was by his side. But the katana blade looked so rough and odd, like it had been forged from an animal that was not of this world. The elf remained silent as he continued with his meditating with the back of his eyes closed. Kevin could only assume that the man was their teacher, being the oldest one in the room. After the students had all arrived inside the hall, the old elf had suddenly stood up from his meditation. His eyes were closed as he walked towards the students and stand behind the podium. "I guess you're the first batch of students I'll be teaching for this week. You guys are more than I thought," the elf said blindly, which surprised the students greatly. One of the brave male elves had stepped forward to see if the old elf was blind or not. "Hey, stop there. Where do you think you're coming?" The old elf stopped the male elf before he could move closer to him. Everyone was more than amazed seeing the old elf see without opening his eyes. They thought he was a blind elf, but seeing how he was able to see them was surprising to the students. They wondered if it was magic he used, cause that was the only explanation that makes sense to them. "Sir, how are you able to see us clearly? Are you using magic to see because you're blind?" one of the students asked. The elf didn't reply at first, but he slowly opened his eyes and a golden-colored eyes was revealed to the students. The students were in awe seeing such a golden and beautiful eyes as this. This was probably the first time they would be seeing this. "Wow, golden eyes," a female student said. Just then the old elf blinked his eyes twice and the color returned back to his natural blue-colored eyes. He then shouted at the top of his voice after sensing that the students were checking each other's eyes and comparing it to his own. "Attention! Everyone froze and turned to look at the old elf. That you just saw now is called a spiritual eyes. It was something I learnt back when I was a student," the elf teacher explained. "Can fairies learn it too?" a fairy asked. "Yes, both magical races could learn it, but let me tell you. Learning the spiritual eyes skill depends on how well you could control the energy in your body. I will be teaching you how to control the energy in your body to flow on specific parts of your body," the elf teacher said. Kevin thought the name of the skill sounded just like the one he had. The elven spiritual eyes. He wondered if both were the same, so he listened attentively to the teacher and watched how it all goes. Anyways, before we continue with our today's lesson, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Luke. I'm the weapon hall teacher for all the newbie students and I am glad to teach you all. It's amazing that I see lots of students with enormous amount of energy. With this, learning the energy weapon skill will be so easy for them," the old elf explained. Now, let's move on to the next topic. Spiritual eyes. I want everyone to try and use their spiritual eyes to move around the hall. Chapter 47. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 47. Chapter 47. System video. Your spiritual eyes get activated by the energy inside you. The old elf sat on the raised podium with his legs crossed on each other. "Everyone should space out and do as I'm doing. Close your eyes and meditate silently just as I am doing. The students immediately obeyed him. What else could they do? The skill looks fun to have. Being able to see without opening one's eyes was a great skill to have. While everyone was excited, Kevin doesn't seem to be. He already has the skill thanks to the system. Learning it again is just a waste of time. The system suggested watching the videos that the system unlocked for him. You would get to train yourself earlier than the other students. Why don't you go sit in a corner while the others are training? Are you dumb? Won't the teacher spot me not doing what he's teaching? Kevin argued. Hey, take it easy. You're many in the room, it would be hard for him to spot you if you stay at the back. And just like your skill, he can only see the auras of the students nearer to him. Don't worry if he spots you, I'll notify you. The system said. Kevin finally gave in and decided to watch the videos the system unlocked for him. He went towards the back of the class where no one would be able to spot him. Don't put me in trouble, system. Kevin finally said as he selected the video tutorials of the system. Just like the system had previously announced, he was able to learn all the teachings that would be taught in the academy in advance. There had been a fixed scheme of lessons for all students, so the system was able to detect them all. Kevin was glad to have this system. It wasn't just a system but a cheat system that favors him a lot. He accepted the fact that he is a Triling person who has a mission of saving the magical race from being destroyed. And he hated to admit it, he wants to get stronger than he is. He was weak back in the forest, but now he's stronger than any of his classmates in the school. He didn't know why he got so greedy to grow stronger within a short time. But once you have a taste of power, you would want to have more. Says Thanos. Apart from the advanced teaching he would be getting from the system, Kevin planned to test out not just his strength and capabilities but the new magics he has. The shadow magic and the lightning magic. Even though he knew nothing about magic, the little information he got from the books he read at the library didn't state that a person could use shadow magic. The commonest magics a person could use are just 5: water, ice, fire, earth, and lightning. Lightning is the hardest magic of them all, only someone with a strong mind could learn it, so in that aspect, healing magic replaced lightning. Healing had become so common because it was easier and faster to learn. For those who already have fire or earth as their first magic, they decided to learn healing as their second magic. But even now, only a few were able to have two magics. Some had even chosen to learn healing magic first and then learn a strong one second. Among them was Lena. She learned healing magic first and had been learning fire magic for the past 9 months, but she's yet to control or summon the magic within her. She only gets to quell a burning fire or a fire lantern. Even still, she didn't back down and was among those who were still hoping to have two magics in the future. Kevin was quite fortunate for having two magics without any difficulty or training. The only thing he needed to do was to practice and learn how to control it. He do not need time learning how to summon the magic when all he needed to do was think of the magic and it would be invoked naturally. It was more than luck for being able to do something like that. Many would cry to be what Kevin once called trash. That's why Kevin concluded and endorsed the fact that he's a Triling and used this fact to his benefit. While other students were busy meditating, Kevin was checking out the videos that were unlocked for him. Presently, there were 2 videos unlocked for him, and among the 2, was one he already knew how to use efficiently. The Spiritual Eyes Lesson video. To confirm if he had learned all that needed to be learned about spiritual eyes, Kevin decided to check out the Spiritual Eyes video, but it had instantly grayed out and a notification appeared in front of him. Well, it looks like I already learned everything about the skill. Kevin strode his hands above his face and clicked on the next video. He was able to click on the system in 2 ways, through his mind or by selecting it with his fingers. As he selected the video, details of how to use the skill were divulged to him, and as expected, Kevin started skimming them all. While Kevin was reading about the energy flow skill, he heard the teacher up front telling everyone to stand on their feet. For those who successfully learned the Spiritual Eyes skill, I want you to stand at the right side far away from those who weren't able to learn the skill so well. I will be picking one among you guys to spar with someone while using his spiritual eyes." Since Kevin already knew how to use the spiritual eyes, he immediately joined the groups of students who went to the right side of the hall. But the old elf had spotted him and had picked him for a spar. "You there, the one at the back." The elf called out for Kevin. "I wasn't able to give a bonus chapter yesterday. Sorry, I was so sick and barely managed to write yesterday's chapter. Thanks for the voting, I'll reward you with lots of chapters soon. Thank you." Chapter 48. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 48, Bonus Chapter, Chapter 48. Dan has a crush on you. I can see that majority of you were able to learn the spiritual eyes summoning skill at the first attempt, the weapon hall teacher, Luke said. While the others are still lagging and would need more practice. Although that may not be needed if it's detected that you can't learn the spiritual eyes. So, I'll be selecting one among those who thrived in learning the spiritual eyes skill. Kevin was staying at the back, but he was surprised to see the homeroom teacher call out for him. Am I being called, or he's calling for someone else? Probably someone beside me. Kevin pointed at himself to see if he was the one, and he saw that the teacher had truly called for him. What's your name, young elf? The teacher asked, and Kevin replied to him. Elf Kevin, please come up front and stand at the podium so everyone could see you clearly, Luke said. Embarrassingly, Kevin pushed himself up to the front. Dan had a grimace on his face as he watched Kevin walk up to the front. He had succeeded in learning the spiritual eyes skill, and his youngest brother Reed was also able to do the same thing. The only ones who failed to learn the skill among the five were Lexa and Zoe. The two were a bit gloomy seeing their friends and family learn the skill while they weren't able to. But Zoe was not as sad as Lexa. While the groups were separating themselves from those who didn't succeed in learning the spiritual eyes skill, Lexa had seen Kevin walk to the right while she stayed on the left-hand side of the hall. She didn't want to separate herself from him, but now he has reached a rank above hers. If care is not taken, Kevin might leave her and get promoted to the next rank, the mage soldier rank. But Lexa will not allow that to happen. I will learn this skill and stay by his side till the end. Lexa promised herself as she practiced the skill once again. Even though she lags in doing things like this, once she has the will and feels motivated to do something, she'll surely do it. Ever since she was a kid, her father doesn't force her to do things she doesn't feel like doing. He already knew how she does her things. If it clicks in her mind to do something, no one could stop her from doing that thing, and it will turn out to be a success. Same as when she first practiced her ice magic. She had frequently seen her father get angry at her sister for learning healing magic as her first magic. Magic that doesn't help her in combat and self-defense. Her father was forced to have guards watch her sister while in the academy, 20.47 because of her weak and useless magic. Lexa had seen all this and had chosen not to annoy her father like her sister did, so she picked one of the strongest magic she could learn and learned ice magic within a short period. Her father was surprised when he saw her 7-year-old daughter learn ice magic within 2 weeks alone without any teacher. It was indeed astonishing to her mother and everyone who heard of the story. She told her father that it was nothing hard. She just read the details of how to control the magic, and since she was determined to learn, she found it so easy to manipulate. Ever since then, her father had loved and cherished her more than his first daughter, Lena. But he did his best not to show it so there won't be a conflict between the two sisters. Lexa's ice magic became something his father was able to brag about in public to his friends whose children learned strong magic. And unlike Lena, who was escorted by bodyguards throughout her high school, Lexa refused to have a bodyguard. She could easily fight and defend herself from any student that challenges her. She went to a public elementary school instead of a private one where rich families take their children, and hid her true identity from everyone in the school including Dan and his siblings. She had learned the magic during that time and would freeze any of the kids that challenges or bullied her. She was well known as the Ice Beauty back then until her father made her attend the private elementary school by force. Finally, Lexa rejoiced as she got a hand of the skill. She successfully learned the spiritual eyes skill within a few minutes. But while in the middle of her rejoicing, she heard someone call out for Kevin. Kevin, she turned her face towards the teacher at the front and saw Kevin standing on the raised platform made in a shape of a battle arena. What she noticed was that Kevin's eyes were tied with a cloth, so he won't be using his eyes but his spiritual eyes. When did Kevin get to the front? Lexa wasn't able to follow all that was happening in the hall because she was so focused on learning the spiritual eyes skill. We need someone who would spar with Kevin. Any volunteer? Luke asked, and as if the students had been anticipating this, a few of them started walking forward, including Dan. They all wanted to spar with Kevin. Reed and the others had their mouths open wide. They didn't imagine he would be sparring with Kevin. What is Dan doing? Lexa asked, and Zoe, who sat a few distances from her, moved closer to her. Lexa, I don't know what's wrong with Dan. He has been acting aggressively toward Kevin lately. I think he's angry seeing the two of you together. He has a crush on you and had been planning to ask you out for a while now, but since you've been hanging out with Kevin, he wasn't able to see you. Please help him, you're the only one who could help him at this moment. He wouldn't pay attention to us anymore. BNOL.M, Dan, Lexa replied. Thanks for the voting and gift, they were enough to make me come up with more ideas. Chapter 49. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 49. Chapter 49. Show no mercy. What Zoe told Lexa just now really surprised her. Dan had been crushing on her and didn't tell her. But she knew even if he asks her out, she won't agree to date him. The one she likes is Kevin, not Dan. She can't force herself to love someone she doesn't even like. 13 students had came out to challenge Kevin. 5 were elves while the other 8 were fairies. The first student had went up to the stage to fight Kevin. His eyes were tied with a clothing as both students stood opposite each other. Kevin could see the aura of the person standing in front of him through his spiritual eyes. His aura was glowing brightly but not as bright as his own. The way he was looking at the person in front of him was like looking at a green person. From head to toe, the person was green. Now we have 2 opponents and they are both elves. Luke announced. You two will be sparring with each other for a full 20 minutes, after which you will be stopped. If one of you couldn't use his spiritual eyes, maybe the limit of your skill is up, signify so we could stop. This is not just a sparring match but a match determining how long your spiritual eyes could last. Others lasts 5, 10 minutes while some lasts 30 minutes. The longest one I ever saw was 60 minutes. Believe me, this is not a joke, it is something I saw myself. So now, activate your spiritual eyes skill. These are the rules. If the opponent you're fighting reaches his limit, you'll be given another opponent to fight until your skill finally reaches his limit. Also, no one must use magic or anything. It is a hand-to-hand match. Use your fists, thigh, and foot only. If anyone is caught cheating, you'll be punished. I hope you understand. Let the match begin. As soon as Luke announced the beginning of the match, both opponents had activated their skill and were now ready to attack each other. Once the match is over, they would deactivate the skill until they are ready to fight again. The cooling time for the skill is the same for everyone, 20 minutes cooling time before they could use the skill once again. During the time Luke was busy explaining the rules, Kevin tried to see if the information about his opponent will be shown to him. But since his eyes has been covered, he couldn't see anything. He needs to lock his eyes on his opponent if he wants to see what magic he had. Fortunately for him, the system had given him a notification as Luke announced for them to begin the fight. Kevin's combat strength is 12 points greater than his opponent's, which means he is far stronger than his opponent. The match with his opponent will be so easy, so he got nothing to worry about. Even the system confirmed that he would win easily as it gave him the percentage of success in the match. No matter how long he keeps his spiritual eyes activated, it doesn't have a cool down time, so he was able to fight up to infinity without getting worn out. This was a lucky card for Kevin. He's probably the only one with an infinity limit of the skill. Even the weapon hall teacher said the longest he ever saw was someone with 60 minutes limit, so it means he's the only one with an infinity limit. How interesting. Kevin said go himself with a smile. Kevin was more than excited to start this match, seeing how much EXP he would be receiving if he completes the quest. He was more than determined to complete the quest at all cost. Note that this is no mercy quest. You mustn't show any mercy to whosoever your opponent is. Do you understand? The A1 system said. Alright. Alright, I've heard. I won't show any mercy at all. Are you happy now? Kevin replied. The two students had charged in at the same time. They were both skilled in a hand-to-hand battle, but there was a difference in strength between both opponents. Although one has a great strength and was able to attack massively, the other was skilled in defending. Kevin was attacking the elf, but with how well Edward was able to defend the attacks, he was finding it hard defeating him. Since the duration of the match is 20 minutes and the student's skill limit is 8 minutes, Kevin knew he would win no matter what, since his skill will not be running out anytime soon. Finally, on the 8th minute, his opponent started losing directions of where Kevin was because his skill was already deactivating. Using that chance to his benefit, Kevin kicked the elf so hard on the stomach and the system notified him of the defeat success. Nice job, Kevin, keep going. I have a good feeling you'll win this quest. Just as long as you don't show mercy to anybody your opponents. Kevin sighed and just ignored the system. Whatever, he pouted his mouth as he saw the teacher come closer to him. Well done, kid, is your skill still active? Luke asked to see if Kevin had reached his limit or not. The other student that Kevin defeated has been taken to the clinic bay by some soldiers guarding the weapon hall. Kevin nodded that his skill is active, so the teacher proceeded in announcing the start of the next match. A different opponent had went forward to challenge Kevin. Chapter 50. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 50, Bonus Chapter, Chapter 50. Kevin vs. Dan. The teacher had moved closer to Kevin once again. Kevin, are you sure you want to continue? You've used your skill for over 40 minutes now, are you sure you're yet to reach your limit? No, I'm fine and I could see better with each fight. Sensing that the teacher was getting suspicious of him, he spoke out. Perhaps my limit is 60 minutes, just like the person you saw having such a limit. Luke was silent as certain thoughts ran through his mind. Listen up, kid, if you manage to defeat this 13th student, you will have to fight me someday. I've never seen someone as strong as you are. The thing is, the stronger your energy force is, the longer your spiritual eye's skill limit will be. As soon as the old elf said this, he faced the other student to give an announcement. It seems like our student Kevin here is really strong. His limit is 40 minutes presently, but it could change soon. The next match will determine what his limit is. The 13th student had climbed up to the podium, standing opposite Kevin. I didn't know we would be finally fighting each other. It seems like it has been fated for both of us. You may be strong, but I would defeat you with everything I have. Dan smirked to himself. No, Dan is finally going to fight Kevin, Lexa exclaimed. Do you think Dan would win? I know my brother is quite strong, but Kevin is also strong too, and I'm not sure who would win among the two. Zoe replied. I would stop them from fighting even if it requires going up to the arena, Lexa said to herself. As usual, the system notified Kevin. He saw the person he was about to fight as an elf. Elves have a longer limit than fairies. The fairies he fought previously all had 2 minutes skill limit. They were 8 in number and each had 2 minutes skill limit, making 16 minutes. While the first elf, the fourth, had 8 minutes limit and the rest had either a 4, 5, or 7 minutes limit. But none of them were as strong as the first student he fought. For a few seconds, Kevin paused and re-read what he just saw now. The name Dan is not the Dan he knew, was it? Kevin was curious to know who was in front of him. Was it Dan or not? He kept on reading the notification to see if he'll find something relating to who Dan is. So far, Dan's limit was the longest and his strength was greater than the other students he fought. But Kevin was worried about Dan. From what he saw, it was certain that Dan was strong, which will make it difficult for Kevin to go easy on him, and he might end up using all of his strength. But since he's not just his friend but his roommate, he could talk him out and ask to let him win this once. Even if it requires paying him back with whatever he wants. While no one was watching, Kevin sneakingly removed the band that was used to blindfold them to take a glance look at the person in front of him, and he could see that it was indeed Dan. He covered his eyes with the band after seeing that it was the Dan he knew. He would proceed with his plan and beg him to let him win the match, and in return, he would give him whatever he wants in return. Nothing is more valuable to him than winning the quest and getting stronger. He's sure Dan could not ask for his system since he didn't know anything about it. Alright, and let the match begin. Luke finally announced, and the two students activated their skills. Before Kevin dashed in, the A1 system gave him a forespeech. Don't show any sign of mercy to your opponent at all. To become stronger, you must be cruel and wicked because that's what the world wants. If you're loving and gentle, the world will think of you as an idiot and foolish person. Kevin grunted internally, ignoring the system as he dashed at Dan. To convince Kevin, the A1 system processed an additional quest reward to draw his attention and make him show no mercy to Dan. Still, Kevin wasn't convinced as he planned to talk to Dan first. Then if his talking plan doesn't work out, he would have no other choice but to defeat him without showing any mercy. Both students grabbed their hands as each started pushing the other to fall the other to the ground. But both were strong students. Using the chance he got, Kevin continued with his plan as he started discussing it with Dan. Dan, can you please let me win just this once? I promise to give you anything you want. Can you hear me? Kevin asked, but Dan remained silent and didn't say anything. They released each other's arms and throw punches at each other. But Kevin was trying his best not to hurt Dan nor use his whole strength in him. Dan had thought this was all Kevin's strength after seeing him beg for them to go easy on each other. That made Dan grow large wings and was more than confident that he could defeat Kevin. I wonder why Lexa fell for you when you're this weak. I will show her how strong I am and break every bone of your body. Sorry, but I'll have to embarrass you in front of everyone. Dan smiled as he looked toward Lexa. Their eyes locked on each other and Lexa could see the evil smirk on his face signifying that he has an evil agenda. I'm not letting you have your way, Dan, Lexa said as she stood up from where she was sitting.